Hello, everyone. Welcome to BizTalk World Talk Show presented by ClickOvi Creators. Today, we have Mr. Nate Brown with us. He spent the first decade of his career managing a complex technical support environment for occupational health and e-learning software as well. And finally, he transitioned to customer experience in 2015, I believe. After authoring, books like the CX Primer, Brown was dubbed the CX Influencer of the Year by CloudCherry in 2019. He also received a lot of certifications and a lot of achievements. He has his name on everything basically, but it's very difficult to mention it in the bio. So I'm just mentioning the CloudCherry one right now. So he also created CX Accelerator, a first-class virtual community for customer experience professionals. And currently, he serves as the Chief Experience Officer for Officium Labs and can be found as a speaker in a variety of conferences, especially for the topics such as which are meant for customer and customer experience, which he loves. So I tried my level best, Nate, to cover maximum things about you. But it's now time, I believe, to hear something about you. But before that, let's do some highs. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me on. Happy Tuesday. I've been thrilled for this interview and love everything that you all are doing out there. Great content.
Hey, great. Thank you very much. It's good to know that you know about us. And I guess now, again, it's time for our viewers to know something more about you in your own words. So it would be great if you can brief a journey so far to us.
Sure. Yeah. I live out here in Middle Tennessee in Music City, Nashville. And I'm looking at my chickens that are running around out there. We've got kind of a little mini farm that we're doing, and I just became a beekeeper, which has been a lot of fun. So that's been a new part of the journey here. And I got two kids and a mini golden doodle. So we're just living out here in Middle Tennessee, enjoying every day. And love my job. I love what I get to do. As the chief experience officer at Officium Labs, is just all about being creative and designing incredible customer experiences for all types of different organizations. We have many gaming clients. We have many healthcare. We've got some in the gig app logistical delivery space, and many others that are just out there in the general industry. So it's been an exciting time, just learning a ton from the great things that we're getting to do and designing these experiences together. It's been a wonderful couple of years.
It's good to hear that, especially in these difficult times when, I mean, since after 2019 or last 2019, when things, have, it's been so crazy for everyone. I mean, I'm personally right now in India. So when I see around it's second wave, and now I guess we are expecting a third wave as well. It's good to see some happy faces somewhere over the globe and people are really enjoying themselves. It's really great to have you, and I hope we can learn more about you now from that segment. All right. So having said that, Nate, it would be great if you can give us a journey of of your professional experience. I mean, you must have managed, a lot of teams, and you have gained a lot of experience. I mean, more than a decade now. So how do you really see that, and how you really deal with the people, how you really manage people, how you really manage teams? So what's your team management mantra in that case?
Yeah, it's definitely changed significantly. I manage several different teams inside of UL as an example, and managing teams now inside of Officium as well, and working with different teams as a consultant. So it's kind of exciting to get to be a part of different teams simultaneously, because you get to see different chemistries and different things in terms of how they work. But I guess it was probably around 2015. I remember just starting to write as a blogger, and was so enamored with Jenny Dempsey and Jeremy Watkin, who were doing the Communicate Better blog. And I just loved their approach to people management, their authentic style, and their ability to engage people where they were at, and the sincerity of what they were doing. So they were definitely role models for me as I was a young leader, and trying to figure out what my leadership style was. And I'm somebody where, for better or worse, I put my heart out in everything. My heart is out on my sleeve, and it's difficult as a leader, because there are those times where I need to be able to withhold some emotion and not be projecting everything that I feel outward towards the team. And that's been a struggle for me. That's been a challenge as I've grown in my EQ, my emotional intelligence, and different things. So it's definitely been a journey. But one huge milestone for me was at UL. They had this incredible program called GOP, Global Leader Program, led by Greg Morris and Debbie Hummel, incredible mentors, incredible business leaders.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was just this amazing program of discovery, self-awareness in terms of your ability to engage people meaningfully and guide them towards their definition of success, and the business's definition of success too. And the marriage of those two things really is where you have the opportunity to step into the void as a leader and coach somebody, guide somebody, enhance their life a little bit. Because, you know, our jobs are such a big part of who we are and what we do, and our overall confidence level, how we engage with others in every sphere of our life. You know, if we can nail it at work and develop better communication skills and better leadership capabilities here, we get to bring that home with us and get to excel in those areas as well. And in our community services, inside of our community organizations that we're a part of, you know, we can bring those leadership skills to those areas as well. So GLP was a huge wake up call for me, and I was definitely discovering that for me, what I love about leading people is just helping them to understand what their strengths are, what their unique individual contributions are that
Mhm.
nobody else can make inside of the context of the team, and really try to unlock those and bring those out. I feel like a lot of managers just micro focus on the weaknesses. You know, they're just, you know, you'd be a great leader if you could work on these couple of things that you're just really not good at. You know, then you'd be this well-rounded, holistic person that can do anything. You don't need to be able to do anything. You need to be able to do some things and do them really well. And the job of a great leader is to map out that puzzle. Who do I have? Who are my resources? How can I grow them and develop them in the areas that they excel at the most, that make them come alive, and then guide them towards those roles and responsibilities and maximize their potential in those areas, instead of spending so much time trying to develop areas that don't excite them, that don't make them come alive, and that maybe aren't the areas where they need to be offering that as a gift to the team, because that's just not where they have the ability to give much. But
Mhm.
they have
Yeah.
this treasure trove that they can give from over here in this area, and we should be tapping into that resource there. So yeah, that's a little bit of my thought process as a guider, as a coach, as a team leader right now. It's isolating those strengths. It's really understanding people in terms of those things that make them come alive the most, the things that they want to do the most. How can we unlock those things?
It would be so wonderful if we can have more leaders like you in corporates. I mean, not in just the developed countries, but I'm talking about the developing countries and underdeveloped countries. That's the major game. I mean, if I talk about from my standpoint, if I talk about India, I mean, there are few leaders. Of course, there are few leaders everywhere, but there are bosses. And sometimes we differ between bosses and managers and leaders. But what I believe is it's all about approach. I mean, as you said, you have two treasures, which is something that you're trying to create and something you already have. So you can use something that you already have, or you can try to cultivate something that you really do not. I mean, it doesn't really exist within you. So I guess that's a great approach that you have here, Nate.
Thank you.
On this go, because you know you have been associated with customer experience now since quite a lot, and you've been recognized for it like since from so many organizations, reputed organizations. So how should one make customer experience as a part of the fiber of any organization? I mean, irrespective of which industry it is. I need a generic answer on that.
Yeah. Well, I do want to call out, you know, I get to work with one great leader in India named Imelda, who's on our Officium team, and she is just wonderful. I mean, somebody who is just firm, but so fair and so authentic, and just really is thorough in terms of her approach and the way that she engages her people. She's been a great person to work with. So wanted to shout out to Imelda. Hopefully you're able to hear this. But to your question, and it's a great question, because customer experiences, I know it's not something that most people probably talk about every day, but it's impacting you every day, either as a consumer or as somebody who is creating and designing those experiences for your customers. You are, in many ways, life is built up of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And our very demeanor, our very mood that day is dictated in many ways by the experiences that are being given to us, or that we're able to extend to others, and the energy that we receive back from that. So
Yeah.
if we think about CX, it's the thoughts and perceptions that people have towards an organization. We're trying to develop a relationship with these companies that we either love or hate. We want to We want to be able
Yeah.
to know them more and understand what makes them tick and know more about the people that really create those organizations so that we can best utilize those products and services in the way that makes the most sense, that allows us to achieve our definition of success as a customer. So the work of CX really is understanding best, what is it that people need? What is it that they currently perceive of us as an organization and the people that make up this organization? How can we enhance those perceptions? How can we maximize value back to these individuals who are giving us the honor and privilege of being our customer? They are the greatest resource that we have in terms of our customers and the people that are serving those customers, our people inside of the organizations. These are the greatest assets that we have as CX professionals or any type of business leader. So how could we design something internally that's a wonderful experience for our people that then, as Denise Leon would say, they can give that gift to others. They can extend that gift towards the customer and towards each other and make an environment worth working for, worth being loyal to. Because loyalty is really the work of CX. We're trying to foster customer loyalty, maximize share of wallet, maximize customer lifetime value. I mean, the financial implications of great CX are tremendous. It's how businesses grow in a
Mhm.
sustainable fashion. But then if we think about that internal lens too, it's again, loyalty.
Yeah.
When we retain and attract the best talent that's out there, we excel as a company. If you think about the waste that is caused in an organization when people turn over, that attrition rate, it costs organizations so much, and your knowledge walks out the door. Many
Mhm.
times your best people will walk out the door. But when we are intentional to design a great experience for those individuals and make them loyal, create an experience worth staying for, then there's just a magic that comes from that, uh, a magnetic sensation that rises up from that employee population that the world can feel. It's like lighting a beacon that attracts customers like a moth to the flame, because people sense, wow, this is an organization worth being a part of, worth having a relationship with. And that does start with the employees.
That's right. That's true. Actually, I myself woke out of a door because of few reasons. Few, of course, few similar reasons. But that's what I believe. I mean, it's not about treating wrong person right. It's about treating right person right. So it's also about that.
Yeah.
Like since we're talking since like now 10 to 15 minutes, you mentioned success. I mean, definition of success
Yeah.
twice. If I really heard that, if you can throw us a light on this, what's the definition of success for you? I mean, I believe that definition of success differs for everyone. Some people can have a chill at a hill. I mean, but an entrepreneur wants to chill in a Ferrari. So
Yeah.
success stories is different for everyone. My father enjoys his shop time, I enjoy my corporate time. So it's my success, that's his success. What's your definition of success?
Yeah, that's a great thing to be calling out. And that term definition of success really is derived from a great resource called Story Brand by Donald Miller, which is one I would highly recommend for anybody in the work of brand building or this work of customer experience for sure. And yeah, I mean, you call out a great thing, and there's a bit of a scary thing that happens, especially in America. We call it the American dream, but for many, it's a very confining path of expectations of this is what success looks like for everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that happens in other parts of the world too, where this is the correct way to live your life. But for many people, in many cases, no, success looks very, very different in the way that we want to engage with our community, the way we want to engage with our peer group and with our family. That's going to look really, really different for different people. So for me, I'm not very financially motivated. It's important. I want to have enough money to be able to do the things that I want to do and be able to create great experiences for my family, as an example, and be able to be generous with that too inside of my community. But yeah, in terms of like acquiring a large amount of wealth, that's not a very motivating thing for me. I love being able to have experiences in which I'm meeting new people, having the opportunity to help and be a part of those people's lives and guide them towards what success looks like for them. I feel like I'm a trainer at heart, a coach at heart. And that really is what makes up my love for the job that I have now, is those opportunities to get to serve people in that type of way. But certainly not everybody is built that way. I'm not a very competitive person by nature until you get me on a pickleball court, in which case I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
But in a business sense, I'm not very competitive, but I want people to win. I want people to accomplish their objectives. But as far as putting myself up on a pedestal or trying to acquire a number of points or different things like that, that's going to demotivate me more than it's going to motivate me. And there'll be many others that will think the same way that I do. So a great book, again, Primed to Perform. It's thinking about what motivates different types of people to lasting, sustainable, meaningful work. How can you unlock those intrinsic motivators inside of them? And that's a great resource to consume, because it'll open your mind to the possibilities. And then you can really view your team, your people in a different way as a leader, and talk about and think about what are these things that make you come alive, that are intrinsic to you, that will be your definition of meaningful work, and how can we offer that to you in a maximized format.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. And you have referred 2-3 books in the entire discussion till now that we had. So I'll try to put them in the description so that everyone can at least buy a paperwork or paper-based or a Kindle version of that. I myself was going to get at least one of them. Right now, I'm just trying to finish Sapiens. I mean, it's a wonderful book. It's really lovely. I know I got late with that book, but yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's better than never, So yeah, I just got it, and it's really wonderful. I would love to read those books that you're recommending. Awesome. Coming back to customer experience, I mean, because again, you have been a part of this journey. Who do you think is getting smarter? Is it the customer, or I mean, is it me as a customer who's getting smarter, or is it you as an organization who is making me smarter in order to get more? How should I put it? Let me reframe it. Is it me who's getting smarter? Is it you who's making me smarter as a customer? Or is it you who wants me to go smarter so that we can expect more services coming out of you?
Yeah. That's a great question. And the sad reality is that most businesses are doing a very poor job in the area of CX. If we looked at the statistics that are vocalized from customers, probably somewhere between 60 to 80% would say that an organization is not doing a great job, not meeting the expectations that they would have of them. So there's a huge opportunity there. And part of the reason that statistic continues to be out there in terms of my needs are not being met, my expectations are not being met as a customer, is because suddenly we are competing with the best of the best across every space and across every industry. The effortless experience, as an example, really changed the game for CX professionals back in 2012, thinking about what matters most to customers. And it's still very true today that in many cases, it's that reduction of friction. It's creating a seamless, consistent, good, but not phenomenal experience, but it's an experience that you can trust, that will definitely meet the expectations that you have. They don't have to blow you away or roll out the red carpet necessarily. But if it's reliable and consistent and gets you back on track, it resolves an issue quickly and easily, as is much of the work of CX, not all of it. It's more holistic than that. And that's very, very much a customer service lens, which is a huge part of this. But so that idea of effort reduction is tremendous in the work of CX. And many organizations are not capable yet. They don't quite have the tools or the technology or the internal processes that would be required to support what would be considered a seamless or frictionless experience. Many of them are working on it, but it's, if I'm out here on my cell phone and I'm receiving a phenomenal experience from my bank or from Amazon or whoever it is, or from an airline that I love, and then I turn around and I'm holding a retailer to that same expectation, they might be a totally different type of service. It could be delivery dudes. I'm waiting to get a meal delivered to my home, but I can't figure out where they are. I don't get a time estimate but I know how far away my Amazon package is, suddenly my expectations have increased. So customer entitlement is one word. Customer expectations, are they on the rise? Absolutely. Because those top 5-10% of organizations that are excelling in the area of CX, they're raising the standard for everyone, regardless of industry. It's a bit scary, but I know that organizations can do it. The roadmap is out there. The best practices are out there. People like Officium are there to help to guide organizations and to coach them along. But it's not easy, but it is very, very possible, and it is required if you
Yeah.
want to ultimately grow your customer base in this era, this age of the customer that we're in today.
Exactly, exactly. I have a very small example on that, because the reason why I asked this question, because I have an example. So I just wanted to share, just to answer synergy. I mean, I actually buy taco from a kiosk near my compound where I live. So I found a new kiosk. He just gives a new sort of packaging and just writes "thank you" on each box when you buy it. So
Yeah,
whenever you
nice.
open it, I mean, it gives you a different feel. So
Yeah.
even if it's just a week ago when they started their business, but now whenever I'm going back to my home, I make sure that I buy it from there. Even if it's not sometimes, I mean, if it's not good sometimes, I myself voluntarily go to them and ask them, like, it was not good today, but
Wow.
yet I guess you can work better on that. But I really regularly buy it from there, because
Wow.
that thank you, gives me a kick that no one ever gave me till now. So I guess that's about, it's about bringing smile and listening also. It's about active listening, and that's what
Yeah.
I guess Amazon did. I mean, when they started with books, it's also a data's role, I believe. I mean, in a broader segment, how you really optimize the data, how you really get maximum potential out of the data. It's about that as well. It's a combination for everything. But yeah, we as a customer are going very, very, very smart. Earlier we used to get the delivery in a week. Now we get it in a day, and now we need it in an hour. So that's the expectation that is,
Yep.
we are the one who's setting up the bar, and organizations, of course, are meeting it. So yeah, it's there's nothing to worry about that. All right. I guess till now we had a great discussion, Nate. Last question that I would ask you, I mean, because so many young professionals also must be reviewing or viewing this particular session. What would you advise to them, to the young professionals in your industry, not in just your industry, but across the industry in a generic sense?
Yeah. I mean, right now, I feel like every time I get asked this question, I have a completely different answer, which probably isn't very good. But I was giving this advice to a great professional a couple weeks ago who was really struggling in the midst of a job transition, and he was lamenting to me. He's like, I just feel like you have this incredible clarity of where you want to go in your career. And I was like, only recently have I had that, but you're right, and that is a tremendous advantage in terms of setting up the stepping stones and the milestones of what would help me to get there. So, I mean, asking tough questions of yourself of what kind of difference do you want to make inside of your family, inside of your community? In what areas do you want to not just survive, not just have a job, but the areas in which you want to excel? Do you have a good understanding of your true strengths right now? And if not, it's time to do a bit of a soul searching exercise to understand what you are the very best at and what you love, because it needs to be both of those things. You might be awesome at something, but it sucks the energy out of you. That's not where you want to go.
Yeah.
You need to be pursuing roles and responsibilities and activities that bring life to you, that bring energy to you, because that's going to make you happier long term and make you more effective at your job. So finding those roles and responsibilities and thinking about those things you're doing, those people you're meeting, those activities you're performing, rather than the title, rather than the paycheck, because those things will come, I promise. When you're excelling in any area because you've thought about what makes you come alive and what you're excellent at, those accolades and those paychecks will absolutely follow every time. If you become an expert at something that you truly love, people are drawn to you in that context. So just ask yourself some of those tough questions. I know that it is hard, especially right now in the state of our world, in the state of our economy, to just break beyond survival mode. So this isn't something you
Yeah.
need to do today or next week, but be challenging yourself. How can I break free of the survival mode, the bare minimum, the just getting by, doing a job? How can I slowly gain freedom from that and
Mhm.
start to get some momentum and excel into an area of focus? I had a coach tell me one time, because I was expressing to him as like, I want to be good at all these things. I want to be the person that everybody comes to with a question. He's like, what? That's worthless. You'll be a jack of all trades and good at none of them. And that's the best case scenario for you with that way of thinking. It's like, Nate, what I want you to develop is laser focus, like an Olympic athlete. Become exceptional in a particular area. And that's what's going to make you have a lasting legacy inside of this organization and be able to make a true difference for all of us. And that really has changed my mentality ever since.
So your deal is not about jack of all, but it's just master of one. That's the deal.
But for some people, like you have your chief operating officer type of people where their superpower is connecting dots.
Yeah.
It's bringing people who are remarkably talented in all these different areas together and being able to understand enough of those different areas to put the puzzle together in a way that it operates well. So for a few select people, like that's their superpower. For most of us, like for me, customer experience, that's my sweet spot, especially as it overlaps into that realm of employee experience, coaching and training and unlocking people's favorite type of work that they get to do and being able to serve customers in an accelerated way. That is my sweet spot. Think about what your sweet spot is and how you can best serve your organization by leveraging that.
That's wonderful. One of Bollywood's movie, I mean, it's Three Idiots. I should recommend you should watch it. It says run behind excellence. Success
Nice.
will follow that. So that's that's a great dialogue. I love it. And one thing that I want to address here is that I can see the intensity, the intensity that you have in order to create value towards customer experience and, as its own genre of industry. I can really see that. I mean, it's a great, powerful session that I really had. It filled me with a lot of power today. And thank you very much for sharing so much insights with us about your journey so far and guiding us through everything that you ever known. And of course, we look forward to having a great chat with you again in the future on some other trending topics in the international business industry. And for our viewers, if you like this chat with Mr. Brown, please like and share this video, and also click on that subscribe button and do subscribe to ClickAway Creators YouTube channel to have more coming in from industry leaders and to appreciate us. This was Sagar for BizTalk World. This was Nate Brown. Thank you very much for joining us, and you have a lovely day. Bye-bye.